WrestleMania 19. This one is for all the people who watched the previous WrestleManias and thought to themselves, pretty good, but not enough Limp Bizkit.
You're watching So Off. This is Freddy Krueger saying hi.
WrestleMania 19, March 30th, 2003 at the Safeco Field in Seattle, Washington. This was a pretty great WrestleMania. From start to finish, some great matches. Some turds, but for the most part, it's pretty great. Started strong with the Cruiserweight Championship on the line. We've got yet another title on WrestleMania Wednesday. There was champion Matt Hardy defending his title against Rey Mysterio, making his WrestleMania debut. Very exciting. This was a great match. I love both of these guys. I think the Cruiserweight title was a WCW carryover. It's the smaller guys get their own title. The smaller but really good guys, like Rey Mysterio's great, Matt Hardy's great. Together they were pretty great. This was an awesome match, a lot of fun. Matt Hardy retained the title. I think there were some shenanigans. And then we had the first performance by Limp Bizkit, doing their Rollin', Rollin', Rollin' whatever song, which they played live as The Undertaker came out on his bike to the ring. Weird. The Undertaker, who's known for his long, involved, brooding, epic entrances. Well, this entrance was to the musical stylings of Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit. It was Undertaker versus Big Show and A-Train. It was some kind of handicap match because it's supposed to be a tag team, they said, but the Undertaker's partner was injured or something. So it was Undertaker versus these two guys. Okay match. Solid, but not great. It was okay. It was as good a match as you'll get between the Undertaker and Big Show and some guy I've never heard of. Undertaker won. Of course. Up next was the Women's Championship on the line. It was a triple threat match. Champion Victoria versus Jazz and Trish Stratus. This one was great. Another great women's match. Trish Stratus is awesome. Jazz is awesome. Victoria, I'd never heard of, but she was like a more athletic, slimmer Chyna. She was really great. All three of these were great. Great wrestling. Great athleticism. They all took like crazy bumps and looked like they really were going all out. Just a lot of fun. Great match. Really liked this one. I was really impressed. Trish Stratus might be my favorite women's wrestler. She's just she's the real deal. She's great. Trish Stratus becomes the new women's champion. Well deserved. Good job, Trish. Up next is the Tag Team Championship on the line. This is a complicated one. Let's see if I can read my handwriting. Eddie and Chavo Guerrera versus Chris Benoit and Rhino versus the reigning champions Team Angle, which is Shelton Benjamin making his WrestleMania debut, and some guy named Charlie Haas. Great match. This was phenomenal. Just 6 awesome wrestlers. There was a lot going on. It was complicated, hard to follow at times when you have this many guys. But all 6 of them were just great. Great to see Shelton Benjamin, one of the most underrated wrestlers ever. One of the greatest wrestlers ever. Really, really good wrestler. The Guerreras, great. Rhino. I don't know much about Charlie Haas, but he was pretty great. This was a great match. Pure wrestling. If you like wrestling, you'll like this match. It was great. Team Angle prevailed and kept the titles. Next up, we have the triumphant return of Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, the Heartbreak Kid. How long has it been? Like 5, 6, 7 years? I don't even remember. Which I guess translates to 5, 6, 7 weeks of WrestleMania Wednesday. And he's back and he's fighting Jericho, who at that point was kind of the younger version of Shawn Michaels. He was the Dolph Ziggler of his day. So it was kind of the copy versus the original. Old school versus new school. Is Shawn Michaels going to pass the torch? Kind of. Shawn Michaels wins, as well he should, because he's the greatest of all time. But Jericho puts in a really good performance, and he comes out. They both come out looking great. It's just an amazing match. Match of the night, probably. Just two of my favorites, two of the greatest of all time. Just with perfect chemistry. These two just meshed together so well. This was so much fun. Great story. Great wrestling. I love this one. This is the kind of wrestling match you can just watch over and over again, and you get so caught up in the story you'll forget who won. It's one of those matches, if that makes any sense. If you're a wrestling fan, I think you know what I'm talking about. One of my all-time favorites. Just a great match. It's good to see Shawn Michaels again. He'll stick around for a while. Then I wrote down my notes. More Limp Bizkit.
WrestleMania! You ready?
And then we had probably one of the worst things I've ever seen. There was a cat fight. Two lovely ladies, referred to as the Miller Lite Catfight Girls. Apparently they were. I googled it. Apparently they were in some Miller Lite commercial where they had a cat fight.
Great taste, less filling. Great taste, less filling.
They fought against Stacy Keibler and Tori Wilson, and they didn't fight in the ring. They fought off to the side in a giant bed full of pillows. So it was like a pillow fight. I wrote down in my notes awful, because it was awful. It was embarrassing. It was just. I don't like being embarrassed to be a wrestling fan, and every now and again, WWF makes it very, very hard to not be embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. This was one of those moments. Then we had the World Heavyweight Championship on the line. It was champion Triple H defending against Booker T. This was awesome. I've been very harsh about Triple H on WrestleMania Wednesday. He's not my favorite wrestler, and I've made that clear. For the most part, I find his matches kind of boring and stale. He doesn't do anything for me. But this match was awesome. I don't know if it was because he was with Booker T, just elevated him. It was just, they had great chemistry. It was just an awesome match. I was gripped. I was on the edge of my seat. I didn't know who was going to win. It was Triple H, of course. But I loved the story. It was a battle. It was a fierce, epic, almost Shakespearean fight between these two guys, and it was awesome. I loved it. Great match. So that was an amazing match, and it kind of comes down a little bit for this next one, which is a street fight between Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. I like both of these guys. I have nothing but respect for Vince McMahon, for what he's done, for what he's created, his business acumen, what he's given to the world. I love him as a performer. Mr. McMahon is one of the greatest, if not the greatest villain, not just in wrestling history, but in Western civilization. He's up there with like Grendel, Dr. No, Professor Moriarty, the Joker, Mr. McMahon. And Hulk Hogan is just the greatest of all time. But at this point, I don't know, this was just two old guys blading to make themselves bleed while they flopped around in the ring. I'm being harsh. They are both for their age, 50s, 60s, I don't know, in amazing shape. Vince McMahon especially. Hogan, even at his prime, was never a great in-ring performer. He was fun, but I don't know. This one wasn't great. Maybe at the time, if I cared about the storyline that was going on, I would have really liked this. But for posterity, it doesn't really hold up as a match taken on its own. Okay. Then we have another rematch between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. This will be their third and final match together. A rivalry that spans 3 different WrestleManias. All great matches. Finally, The Rock beats Stone Cold at WrestleMania. Really fun. These two, always great together. one of the greatest rivalries in the history of wrestling, if not the greatest rivalry. It's up there with like Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, the Freebirds versus the Von Erich brothers. Just a great match and a great way for Stone Cold to end his wrestling career. This was his last match, and he went out by letting The Rock win, which is great. Just a great match, and thank you, Stone Cold, for all that you've done for the wrestling business. Arguably one of the greatest of all time. I know I say that about everybody, but this time I actually mean it. Then we have the main event, which is the WWE Championship. I'm not quite sure how that differs from the World Heavyweight Championship, but it's champion Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar, making his WrestleMania debut. It's really weird because Brock Lesnar is still around, and he's now the Beast who just destroys everybody. That's his gimmick. He's the Beast who just suplexes everybody over and over again and just decimates his opponents. So it was really weird seeing him. He's really young and just a great wrestler. I mean, we're talking about a collegiate champion. Man, was he good. Especially with Kurt Angle. What a match. And because now Brock Lesnar shows no pain. He's indestructible. But in this match, Kurt Angle kicked the crap out of him. It was just, I mean, it was back and forth, but Kurt Angle is Kurt Angle. And this match may have been the debut of Suplex City, but it was Kurt Angle just giving Brock suplex after suplex after suplex. And Brock he wasn't as big then as he is now, but he was still huge, and he still towered over Kurt Angle. But Kurt Angle, a legit badass, just believable, and tearing apart Brock Lesnar. But Brock prevailed and became the new champion. It was really scary, a legit injury. He went to the top rope and he did a shooting star press. I think that's what it's called, where he did a flip off the top rope and tried to land on Kurt, but Kurt was too far away, so he landed on his head. And he got a concussion, we later learned, and hurt his neck. I think he maybe had to have surgery or something at some point. And it's horrific. He gets up, and you can they zoom in on his face, and he's not there. Like, there's just nothing. Somehow he finished the match and won on pure instinct, but if you can see his face, there's nothing there. Like, you can he thinks he's dead. It's really scary. It's really chilling and hard to watch from a historical perspective, knowing what actually happened in the ring. And props to Brock for finishing the match and even giving Kurt Angle the F5, which is his finishing move where he lifts people up and he throws them there like a pizza and drops them down. It's really amazing. But anyway, great match. Awesome match. A great way to finish a great WrestleMania. This was a really good one. I want to give it a thumbs up. Definitely check it out. Skip the pillow fight. But other than that, I think they're all good to great to phenomenal. Really good WrestleMania. 80s, great. People are nostalgic for the 90s, 70s. You had disco, the 60s. You had Woodstock and hippies. 50s, cool cars, birth of rock music. Who cares about the 2000s? What do the 2000s have? They have nothing. They got Limp Bizkit and the Miller Lite Catfight Girls.